What's going on, y'all? KM Best here. I was gonna make another ElSA Loki video, but it seems like it might be a little bit more instructive to talk about how much of a problem ElSA Bloodstone is, the impact she has on the high infinite metagame, but we're gonna talk about it first. ElSA Bloodstone is the most recent Season Pass card in Marvel Snap. She has 2 cost and 2 power, and her ability says when you play the 4th card in a location, that card gets +3 power. And on its face, that is a relatively balanced-ish ability, because if you are filling up the board, that means that she is giving out 9 power, she's a 211, but you're not filling up the board a lot of the time, so maybe she's more like a 2-8 or a 2-5, she doesn't go in everything, and you're putting in effort to get what she pays out. The issue is she pairs with so many cards in a way that lets you recycle her buffs. The base level of pairing with her is you put her with cards that can move out. So you play a Nightcrawler, you play a Jeff, and you play a Vision, and you get excessive amounts of power out of her every time you do that. If you have an ElSA going into a Nightcrawler pumped with the ElSA on turn 3, Jeff on turn 4, Vision on turn 5, suddenly she's like a 212, and that starts to become very, very oppressive. She's also extremely oppressive with Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde is a card that can consistently be the 4th card in the slot, and that is a huge issue because you often see kitties getting to, 9, 12, 15 stats. It's very difficult to deal with. But fundamentally, the issue is where the stats are coming from. In most games in High Infinite, the games seem to be determined by who gets their ElSA and who gets it early. And when you get an ElSA before your opponent and you can start stacking up those buffs, it's very, very hard to actually beat them. And why is it so hard to beat these ElSA decks? The basic reason is because when you think of ElSA as a 215 or something like that, all you want to do is pair it with the cards that make it a 215, and then pair it with as much tech as you possibly can. This is my current build of Loki, except it's not even really a build of Loki. It's literally just an ElSA deck, to the point that we even cut Collector. The thing that ElSA allows you to do is make up for the lack of points that a lot of tech cards have. Because you're getting so many free points, you get to just run cards like Rogue, like Shang-Chi, and then games turn into a do they have it kind of thing. Now, there are also other builds of Loki. The one that I'm most fond of outside of this would be one that runs a Cosmo, because it matches up well into this when both of you are doing the same thing, but there is a Cosmo on your side preventing them from Shang-Chiing and Lokiing and doing their various rogue things as well. But what am I really getting at is this card, ElSA Bloodstone, is so strong that we cut the Collector from Loki because we don't even need the power. Do you know how ridiculous that is to say? The Collector is like a 2-9, and we're out here like, you know what? I don't actually think we need that card. We just need to fully invest in ElSA, and then she will handle it, and then we can run our tech cards. We don't need to worry about the power we output. We need to worry about limiting our opponent's power. And that's just kind of berserk, right? Like, this is a card that has pushed the card that they nerfed to nerf Loki out of Loki decks. That sounds like a problem to me. So what are some potential solutions for this card? At this point, I think basically everyone is aware that she is a little bit overtuned, but I don't think people understand the degree to which she is overtuned. For example, like, she's not more broken than Loki, but she is probably stronger, if that makes sense. Like, she's not more broken, but she is more everywhere. There are more ElSA decks than there were Loki decks, and she sort of goes in almost everything you'd ever want to play because very few decks are willing to turn down a 215. And so every deck that you build with starts with ElSA, it starts with Kitty, it starts with Jeff, you maybe put a Nightcrawler in there, maybe a Vision, the whole ElSA package. Angela goes in there, right? Every sort of deck that is looking to approach the game from a points standpoint is just best served by doing that. And so then you have, just like during the Loki meta, we had like Cerebro 3 and Hela stuff. You still have that kind of stuff that's just like, all right, I'm going to take a totally orthogonal line here, but it's not very reliable, just like in the Loki meta. And the fundamental issue is ElSA just is too many points for what she does. So I think there are two ways to approach nerfing ElSA Bloodstone that are not necessarily equally strong, but both can be applied before really trying to figure it out. So way number one is you reduce the power on the card, right? You make her a 2-0, I would say you start there, or maybe a 2-1, and then say, if you're not popping off with this, she is actually going to hurt you because her stats are just not that good. And that is one way to approach balance. I think it's a reasonable attempt, but I think a lot of people would like to see maybe her only giving +2. And I think normally I would say that seems unlikely. They probably won't do that. But if she only gives +2, it means there are other things that you can try to do for stats that are going to be almost as good as her. It allows mid-range decks that are aiming for points and tech to play other shells. I think that would be one way to do it, and I think the 2-0 would be one way to do it. But either way, I've been seeing a lot of people talking about how ElSA is balanced, and I just don't think she is. ElSA is not broken the way something like, you know, for a Magic analogy, Black Lotus or something like that is broken. ElSA is broken in the sense that she's just too efficient for her cost. Her numbers are just too much of a problem, right? And that centralizes the metagame around her and what she does, and that is an issue. It's not necessarily like the least fun we've ever had, but there is a point at which this card probably needs to be dealt with. So let me know in the comments which of the methods of dealing with it you prefer. I would be interested to find out, because I think the cutting her to only give +2 is a little inelegant. I think they would rather do the thing where they hit her power, but she might actually just be too strong to exist. I do believe that Second Dinner is aware that they overshot the mark on ElSA, but I'm not sure how much they feel they can fix it. And that sort of brings me to what I would consider the underlying question here. Do you remember when they didn't nerf this card? When they didn't nerf this card, there was a lot of belief that they didn't nerf this card because they didn't want paying players to be sad, right? People who bought this card on the Battle Pass, they wanted them to have what they paid for. And I think that that sort of sets a precedent about who the game is for and who the game is designed to appeal to. And I think this ElSA thing might be, I won't say the canary in the coal mine, but it might be indicative of where their head is at moving forward, because they've had some misses in terms of balance and free to play before. I think most people may remember that Shuri was nerfed right as she went into Series 3. Now, I personally don't believe that's like a purposeful thing. I think they whiffed on the balance patch before her, and before that happened, and then they were just like forced into doing it then, and there was nothing they could do about it. But it's where this sort of started, where people are like, okay, are you explicitly balancing to power or to what people paid for? And I think not nerfing Loki last month, when I consider it still a problem right now, it's just less of a problem than ElSA. Instead, nerfing the card everyone has in Collector and releasing a card to counter it in Mobius that people have to pay for, I think that that is the thing that's really making people wonder if they're even going to solve the ElSA problem and how they would solve the ElSA problem. So I think this is what is informing a lot of the discourse, the belief that Second Dinner is not in the business of nerfing recent season pass cards. That said, I mean, people compare this to Zabu and Surfer. Not only did Zabu and Surfer get nerfed, they even rolled out OTAs early so they could nerf Zabu better. So I do think there is a lot of precedent for them saying explicitly, we will nerf cards that are problems when we can, but it is still a little bit, it's something in the back of people's minds, I think. So I would say that I am hoping that this card and, of course, this card are addressed in the upcoming OTAs. I believe there is an OTA on Thursday. And the good thing about ElSA, if not Loki, is that ElSA is eminently fixable in an OTA. ElSA is probably the most OTA fixable card they have ever released, because the only issue with her is just the numbers on the card. Those are what they can change in OTAs. So whatever they come to, whatever decision they come to, me personally, I think the 2-0 is sort of more in line with how they tend to balance, but I don't really know. I'd like to know what you think should be done about ElSA it is extremely powerful and extremely centralizing. So let me know in the comments if you think that this card needs a nerf and what you think that nerf should be. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I have been KM Best. You be good. I will see you in the next one.